All right. What's up, Joel?
What's up, dude?
So you and I talk all the time, and we come up with ideas for YouTube videos, podcasts, things that will help people out. And I think this would be no different.
Yeah. Well, I judge YouTube or podcast material by how many DMs I get regarding a topic, and if it's something that I get messaged about a lot, like should just make a long form video to answer all the questions that people aren't messaging us.
Yep, it's much easier. Like the rifle video that we did, that answered a ton of questions. The PDP video, people love that stuff.
Good. That's what we need.
Let's give the people what they want.
I had the bright idea. We should do a light video all about weapon mounted lights.
Let's do it.
You can shill mod light stuff, all shill Surefire stuff.
Yep.
All right. Well, what's the full disclosure stuff? You're a mod light employee. That's right. Like we can say that.
Yes, I've been a mod light employee since basically the very beginning. So I know all about the mod light stuff. I am a big fan of the mod light stuff just because I know how all of it works. It's worked very well for me. Yeah, I basically do all of the R&D for mod light. So I get all the new stuff. I get to test it, see what works, see what doesn't, make changes, all that jazz.
That's baller. I don't have any real affiliation with anybody. Surefire sometimes sends me some stuff, or I could buy stuff at a discount just for testing or whatever, but I don't get paid by them. And well, not talking poorly of mod light. I just use Surefire stuff because the majority of the clientele I have, that's the stuff they use. So I just buy the stuff that they have, and Surefire stuff is baller. So anyway, I'm more knowledgeable on Surefire stuff. Nick knows the mod light stuff, so I thought a little compare and contrast would be good because I think those are the top two names in the light game.
I would say so, yeah. I mean, there's like a couple others, but I wouldn't even consider them to be, competition.
Sure.
So to speak. I would say it's Surefire and mod light at the top.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about some terms first.
Yep.
We get
terms that people need to know.
Yes.
Yep.
I'll say throw and flood are the two terms that people care about. Is that fair?
For sure.
We should define what those are.
Yeah. So you can think about the throw like Candela. So if you get on, either of the company's website, any flashlight website for the most part, I mean, if they're reputable, it should have the lumens and Candela listed. So if you get on there and you look for Candela, that is going to be your throw. So the amount of Candela that you have describes the amount of throw that the light has. So in other words, how far does the light go? This is pretty important for things, not only just shooting at longer distances. I think that's kind of the misconception. People go, I don't need all the Candela because I'm not shooting at far distances. It helps when for things like maybe you're a cop, right? And you need to see through window tint. You want a lot of Candela. That's the amount of power that is going to push through the window tint. If you didn't have a ton of Candela, you're not going to see through window tint. Another good example would be maybe during the day and you're trying to see into a dark, I don't know, take for instance a garage, right? You're standing outside the garage during the day. The garage is really dark. You're going to need some sort of light that has high Candela to go through the lit space that you're standing in into the dark space so you can see. A light with high Candela is going to be a really good option for that. Lumens is going to be the amount of light that you see around the throw. So it's the amount of spill that the light has. Now, all of this stuff is probably going to be based around personal preference. Personal preference is typically dictated by your own experiences, things that you need and all that jazz. So how many lumens do you need and how many Candela do you need? What's ideal? I think that's probably where people get confused the most.
Yes. When you should just make a decision and buy a light, probably.
Yes. I mean, for me, I would err on the side of higher Candela and less lumens for the most part, because seeing through, window tint, seeing through, if you're standing again, in a lit area, trying to see into a dark area, that helps greatly. Even if like say you're shooting at night 100 yards away, right? A higher candela is going to be very, very nice to be able to see.
Well, I have a fun little story. It just so happens I was shooting this with this exact flashlight on it. This is a Surefire Turbo, so one of the pistol lights. And there was a C-zone steel at maybe 60 meters, something like that. And I'm shooting with some special forces dudes that have all the stuff. They've got nods, doing some white light. There's so work lights, and then some people brought personally owned pistols and lights. So there's a wide variety of stuff. And everyone's blasting stuff all over the place. But the farthest steel is this C-zone steel at 60 meters. And people are shooting it and, whatever. And I pull out this gun. I draw my gun with this turbo on it. And it is like the bat signal hit this thing. It's like a spotlight hit on it. And regardless of whose light, like real talk, whoever's light was on or off on the line, it did not matter. If I turned this on, you saw it. And like the admin guy there was impressed enough. They have lights, which we'll talk about in a second, a lot more of the flood. So when he was impressed enough, he had, like with fresh batteries, one of his guys had his light on this C-zone target. And then afterwards, one of the other guys had my gun with my light on it. And you can turn my light on and you can see a distinct difference after the other light's already pointed at it. So like the admin guy's taking a video to show, more like proof of concept, like we need these because at distance, people think like, oh, it's going to be inside my house. And they're like, whatever. I'm not preparing myself for the doomsday apocalypse, but it's nice to have because on that day for that situation, I had something that no one else on the range had. So it's kind of cool.
Yes. Yeah. The higher candela stuff, dude, is definitely where it's at. And like cops always come to mind with this because I can think of a gazillion different, scenarios where they would need one. I've talked to like SWAT cops in Las Vegas where it's super bright, basically 24/7.
Sure.
But they may be looking into a dark spot. So like you need a light with high candela. I had one of them tell me that this guy was on a balcony in one of the hotels and he had a mod light and he's like, he's shining it up into the balcony. And every time the dude popped out, he was like, and the guy was like 10 stories up or something like that. And if that cop didn't have a light with high candela, you might not be able to see him at all, might not be able to see his hands, might not be able to see anything that guy is doing. So I think it's super freaking important to have high candela.
Yeah. Well, and like you talk about the cop stuff, I don't do anything cool. I just talk to people that do. But so like the difference is having a lesser powered light, you might still be able to see the person or see that they have arms and hands attached to their body. But being able to actually see if they're holding anything in their hands isn't always possible unless you have the higher candela, the higher throw light.
Absolutely.
So you're looking for details, not just shapes and colors.
Yep.
Because it's not like you're just looking for somebody to shoot. Hypothetically, you're looking for specific details before you start shooting. So
shine a light in the direction. Hey, what's that dude have in his hands? These are very, very important things. I mean, just in traffic in general with headlights and stuff, like you have to be able to see past that. You need a light with higher candela to be able to push past through headlights and things like that.
Sure.
So
all right. Well, let's talk about flood.
Yep, lumens.
What's flood?
Flood basically describes the easiest way to think about it is like how many lumens does a light have. So if a light has very high lumens, you're talking about how bright is it at a very close distance, right? So that would be the amount of flood that the light has. So like with mod lights specifically, if you shine the mod light, like you will see like a very tight center beam, right? That would be like the amount of throw. And then you'll see a different beam around the center beam. That would be the amount of flood you would have, right? The higher lumen lights are going to be brighter. They'll have a brighter flood. That will make the light brighter up close. So if you want to see things, more up close, I think, a good example of this for mod lights, if you are on the mod light website, there's basically two different type of heads that you can get, say, for, any of the weapon lights. It's going to be your OKW or your PLHV2. Your PLHV2 is going to have less candela but more lumens. Therefore, in my opinion, like that's the one that would be, better for a pistol light. So, you get a pistol light, you want to be able to see things a little bit closer because maybe you're not shooting that far away or whatever the case may be. Still has decent amount of candela on it, but like I think the lights that have higher lumens and less candela probably more applicable for maybe a pistol light or a handheld light maybe. So again, it just kind of depends what you're looking for.
I agree. And then, well, we'll talk about I suppose specific models, but in the Surefire, the pistol light, the 300s, the turbo is the model with the high throw, the high candela, and the ultra is the model with the high flood. So
they have 3 different head models, right?
I think so. There's also a vampire, right?
Yeah, the vampire has the white light and the
IR
light. Yep.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which one do you like the most?
Yeah, I like the turbo for all the stuff, just because it gives me the extra capability if I want it. So, well, we'll talk about more. But I mean, I got a rifle with a turbo also.
Mhm.
It's just nice to have it if I want it. Then if I don't want it, so like if you're shooting inside the house or indoors, the turbo, it's not like you only can see this amount on the target and you can't see anything else. So I just like the added, from my experience, amount of detail you get with shining a spotlight wherever the light goes, compared to having the wide flood and being able to see shapes, colors, and some detail. But I feel like it's more high resolution when you have a very bright light on it.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said too for like having a light with really, really high candela as like at the risk of sounding whatever. Like I almost think it's like a deterrent. And I know it's a deterrent because I've had cops tell me this. Like,
Sure.
hey, I shined it at this guy and he was like, dude, make it stop. Like it's
Sure.
burning my face off, you know, that type of thing. So I don't know. For me, I think there's something to be said for that.
But I never do anything cool. I just like
Me
LARP
neither.
on the range or hang out with people that do cool stuff.
That's
so
pretty much what I do as well.
part-time LARPing.
Yep.
The other terms we should talk about, dual fuel.
Yep.
So go ahead if you want to.
So what dual fuel means is what type of fuel essentially is the head program for. In other words, what type of batteries can it use? So if we're looking at mod lights, if it says dual fuel, if it's got dual fuel actually engraved on the head itself, that means you could run rechargeable batteries like your 18350s or your 18650s, or you could run 2 CR123s. You cannot run 1 CR123. It won't be enough. So if you want to run CR123s, you will need the bigger bodies, kind of like this one here. There we go. This is the 18350 body. And then you could run the dual fuel heads and run 2 CR123s or rechargeables. I like to me, it's a no-brainer. Like I always want the dual fuel head. You know, maybe like I have a ton of rechargeable batteries, but maybe I'm in a situation where, hey, maybe I forgot one. Everyone typically has CR123s. So super easy.
Concur. Surefire is similar. This one on the head of it, it just has DFT. So this one's dual fuel turbo. But yeah, or I mean DTF, whatever. So anyway, that's easy to pick that out. And then it's single and double cell also, like what you were talking about.
Mm-hmm. Now that one can run off of 1 CR123 battery, right?
Correct.
Does the power go down?
No, well, let's start talking about lights, I suppose. So for Surefire lights, there's a single and a dual cell model. So this one is a single cell. It only runs off one battery. There's not enough room for 2 of them. So the output is a little bit less than what the 2-cell light is, but it's also way more compact. So on the old MP Fizzle here, this is just nice because it's a way shorter light compared to having a dual cell light like this one. This is a lot more to take up rail space, like where this MP5 is a smaller gun or a shorter gun, I suppose.
Yep.
So anyway.
So with that, we should talk about battery life because that is definitely a big thing. So like the shorter cell lights, like your pistol lights or like your single cell weapon light there, like how much battery life do you get out of those?
I don't know. I just use them until I start to go dim, and then I just throw them in a trash can and put new ones in them, or I use the rechargeables.
Yep. So
I'm not good at measuring that at all. Sorry, go ahead.
So like definitely something to think about, right? If you're looking at purchasing a light, is the battery life that you get out of it. How long do I actually have? So out of these pistol lights or your like 18-350 size weapon light bodies, like you will get anywhere from like 35 to 45 minutes of battery life, and that would be basically continuous battery life, right? In the grand scheme of things, like that's quite a bit. However, if you are someone like a cop that is going to sit on, say, like a search warrant, or maybe you're doing like a call out for 5 hours, that's definitely something to take into account. Like, am I going to need to change batteries several times because this thing doesn't get the type of battery life that I need? Whereas if you went to an 18650 size body, you get about 1 hour of battery life. There's another option that you can do where if you're into mod light stuff, all this stuff is modular, by the way, by the name. You can do the 21700 body, right? And then get the boost attachment for the front of this thing. I should have all this handy, but I'm not prepared. But you can buy what's called a boost attachment, put that on the front, and then put any of our regular heads on the front of this thing, and then you get significantly longer battery life. So out of the 21700s, you can get depending on the head that you get, anywhere from like, I believe it's like 3.5 hours to 5 hours. In my testing, I've gotten significantly longer. Like I left one on all day at one point. I think the one head, well, maybe I shouldn't say this, but like I've gotten at least 7 to 8 hours.
Did it burn anything? What did you have it? Did you?
It didn't burn. Nope. That thing stayed on for a very, very long time. So the 21700 bodies, they're bigger. So, this might not be for everyone because it is, here, I'll show you. Actually, let me grab a different head. Here's an older head, but like it is almost the size of the head itself, diameter-wise. Like it's a bigger body, but the trade-off that you get is a significantly longer battery life.
Okay.
And these bodies are going to be able to run any of the tail caps that you would run on any of the other bodies. Like same exact tail caps that you have on your Surefire, like that DS00, you could run on this. You could run the new Unity gas cap, tail cap for it. Just depends on, what you're looking for. So 21700 is actually pretty freaking dope.
All right. Should we talk about pistol lights?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Yeah.
So, I'll talk about Surefire stuff. There's 2 attachment methods, an A and a B style. That's determined by the method it attaches. The A model, it's just got 2 little, I don't know how to say this, like 2 little tabs, kind of, and then you just slide it on the gun and it just snaps in place. There are a couple different like U-shaped brackets or adapter mounts, I don't know what the right verbiage is, that they come with to make it fit to different models. It is super secure. The downside, in my opinion, if you're not shooting a Glock, it doesn't fit super snugly on most other models. Or
rattles.
The way I'd want it to be. You get, yes, just a little bit of rattle. It's not coming loose. It's not going to fall off. It's just a little bit of rattle. So I prefer the B model. So the Bravo model has this thumb screw. The downfall with this one is people can over tighten them. What I do is I just thumb tighten it until it stops. Then I could use a key or a screwdriver or whatever you want. Turn it like another half or quarter turn, so it's snug, but I'm not tightening it down as tight as I possibly can, because if you do that, you can actually get the frame to flex and cause malfunctions or damage the frame, the dust cover of your pistol.
Yep. Similar things with Mod Light, right? But we don't have any of the A model where you're going to pull down on a tab and slide the light on. This one is going to have a screw that is going to screw into the opposing cleat on the other side. It also has an adapter that is going to go in the middle. The adapter, there's 2 of them that come with the light. So you'll have a pick rail adapter and a universal adapter. So your uni adapter would be for like Glocks. Your 1913 would be for basically everything else. That does need to go in there. So that is an integral piece of the light itself. It would be like mounting an X300 without that little cleat thing that's on the bottom that actually keys into.
Yeah.
I mentioned that because people do leave that out sometimes. And Yeah, like it is a part of the light. It has to go in there. And same thing, like one thing that whether it's this light or whether it's your X300B, like get on the manufacturer's website and look at the amount of torque that this thing requires. Like I think it's a really, really good idea.
Oh,
This
I
way
just
you don't
tested
have
that.
to like
Sounds smart.
this way you don't have to email and be like, hey, I broke this because whatever reason. It's like, well, what was your torque values? And you're like, oh, 60 foot-pounds. like I'm putting on, lug nuts on my tire.
Yeah, I don't want it to come off, man.
Yeah, like so just be smart about that, whether you're attaching this or whether you're attaching the Surefire. Like there are torque values. I'm sure Surefire has them smack dab on the
I do.
website too, on the product page. Like, hey, torque it to this for you know, for if you actually want the light to stay on the gun.
Yeah. No, makes sense. And then what else? I guess as far as Surefire goes for pistol lights, it's just the turbo or the ultra. I like the turbo, but if you have an ultra, I'm not saying you should sell your light to buy the turbo, whatever. It's just like if you're in the market, I like that one. But I have both of them. Anything else to talk about on pistol lights?
Yeah, my light actually has the compact head. So if you look at, say, this one, which is like your regular
Yep.
one that will come on the pistol lights and the rifle lights or whatever. If you want something smaller than that, you can do the compact head. See if I can get these things both in my hands here. There we go. You do the compact head, which is significantly smaller than, I'm having a hard time showing this, but
no, you're fine. I can see what you mean.
Yep, there you go. It's a good bit smaller than the regular heads. So if you want something that a little bit smaller package, the compact head would be the way to go. You could actually get this in the, like if you want a pistol light with the compact head, you just get the PL350C, which will come with the compact head. So it'd be a little bit smaller package. Like it'll fit in Safarilands a whole lot easier. Not that these don't, like they fit in Safarilands too, but like these will fit in the Safarilands. Maybe you want to concealed carry your pistol with a light. The PL350C would be a good option for that.
And with pistol lights, I suppose there's different methods to activate the light.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know what mod lights are. For Surefire, there's a paddle, so you can just flip it down or flip it up to leave it kind of locked in place, or you can push in for a momentary, which I don't know. I would not want to do that while I was shooting, but I suppose you could do that for momentary, something like that.
Yeah. So these are constant on only, the PL350s. There's no momentary on that. And to be honest, man, I'm with you. Like, if you've ever tried to take an X300 out and shoot a bill drill on momentary, it's like the amount of force that you have to keep on that switch in order to be able to keep the light on to where it like doesn't flicker as you're shooting a bill drill. Like, I get it. Like, there'll be a ton of comments like, hey, I use it for this. Like, cool, man. I personally have never found a use for it. So constant on is basically my jam. So when I come out of the holster, all I do is just push down on the switch and then roll back into my grip and shoot, right? When I'm done shooting, all I do is basically rock the pistol into my knuckle, which kicks the switch back up. It's super easy. It's like turn it on, turn it off, done. I would also say too, like if you wanted to do momentary only but have a PL350, it's very easy to just click it on and click it off. Like you could use constant on momentarily, essentially. It's just a training thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, makes sense.
Anyway,
I think it does it for pistol lights. Should we talk about rifle lights?
Yeah, totally. Tail caps.
Oh boy.
What tail caps do you run? Because I have some different ones here.
I've got a couple different style, but I think on the ones I've got here, it's a DS00 dual switch 00. So I've got a push button so I can activate the light that way, or it's also got the socket in the back that I can attach a pressure switch to.
Yep.
But Surefire also makes cap that don't have the pressure switch. Instead, it's just a tail cap with a socket.
Yeah, the UE.
The idea would be there, I suppose, is if you have you're in a gunfight and this cord gets shot.
Yeah.
miraculously you are okay, but just the cord gets shot, you wouldn't have a way to activate the light because the cord was shot off. So this way, I'm still good. If my pressure switch gets shot or the cord, the cable itself, I can still use the push button to, get back in the fight, brother.
Exactly.
But it just protects against another point of failure, I suppose.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it offers a little bit of redundancy that I would say 99.9% of people probably don't need or will ever use. If you want it on there, that's cool. I run both, so most of my stuff, I've got a bunch of different setups. Most of them are going to have either the DS00, like yours, like this one has a tan one on it, and then this one has the Unity gas cap. So the Unity gas cap is super cool because, well, a couple reasons. Number one, the plug option in the gas cap is USB-C. So you can get a whole lot more power through a USB-C cable than you can like that Surefire plug and lead for that matter, because the lead on the Surefire switches are a little bit smaller. So you're not going to get the amount of current that you could put through, say, this one. So gas cap's pretty neat in that way. It's almost like, I try to relate this to, like, remember when EOTechs had the batteries that went in line with recoil?
Yes.
And it was like, man, they would only
512 or 510, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, man, they would only work for so long because recoil just beat it to death. And I think it's the same with some of the Surefire switches where, like, if you run them over a long period of time, like I've never broken the DS00, but the UE, I've broken a bunch of those. And I think it's just because when they're in line with recoil, like that plug, not only the plug, but the jack in the tail cap kind of takes a beating over time. The gas cap has the USB-C, but it's plugged into the side.
Okay.
So it's almost like, I'm not going to say, well, I can say, like, it's resistant to recoil. Like now they're still pretty new. However, I've gotten a bunch of rounds on these things and I've never broken any of the gas caps. Like it's a pretty bomb-proof design. It also has a clicky button on the back that you can push if you are looking for that redundancy thing. Maybe you're in an IED and your wire breaks and you need a clicky cap, and bam, there it is. You can get back into the fight, brother.
Exactly. Yeah. So as far as attaching the light body itself, well, I'll brag on Surefire stuff. I think the Pro mount is so boss.
It's dope.
So, like, this is noticeably better than anything else I've messed with. The Surefire Pro model lights have a little hinge on the side of the light, and with the light, it comes with two different cleats. So this piece, and it comes with a pick and an M-lock cleat. So what you can do is you attach that to your rail section wherever you want for Picatinny or M-lock, and then when you loosen that bolt there, you can turn this thing wherever you want it. And you end up getting the light where you can just melt it into the rail, where the thing almost, I mean, it isn't like it disappears, but there's nothing sticking out. I can get this thing as close as I want to the rail. And I think that part's pretty fly.
Yeah, that's super cool for like lasers too. If you want a light that's mounted very close to a laser and, you don't want to have to buy a couple different mounts to see which one works, like that one you could just take out of the box, put really close to a laser. I think where stuff like that also comes in handy is using a maul. So if you've ever used a maul, you'll know that on the bottom of that thing, that is where, let's see, I've had two mauls, but it's been, I think, like almost 2 years since I've had one. I think that's your windage turret on the bottom, which is kind of a pain because the light is always in the way. So like you're either taking your light off or you have to set it up in a specific way to where you can actually get to that turret. Well, that thing, all you got to do is like flip your light down, get to that turret, adjust your windage turret on your maul, and then you put your light back up, and you don't have to take anything apart. So it's pretty handy for that.
I've also just changed my lights around between rifles or something I want to get moved or further forward, further back, change muzzle devices. And I like how easy this is, that I could put this on any of my guns and it's quickly enough I can move it around or find a spot that makes sense.
Yep.
Because I don't I've yet to have a rifle that's been set it and forget it, where I never moved anything around since like the initial setup.
I'm constantly moving stuff, like especially the setups that have lasers on them. When I go out and shoot at night, like I learn something pretty much every single time I go out and shoot at night, whether it's with nods and like I'm not doing this like operationally, right? Like I'm on my range with nods, shooting, doing like performance shooting stuff, but like just figuring out like, hey, maybe I like this there, or I want this pressure switch here. Crap, this mount's in the way now, so like I'm constantly moving that stuff around. For mounts, I typically gravitate towards the Arasaka mounts. Now, it's not proprietary to Mod Light. All the Mod Light weapon lights will work with any of the Scout pattern mounts. So pretty much any mount that will work for a Surefire light will also work for the Mod Light. So the Arasaka mounts, like there's a bunch of different options, and I've just had really good luck with them. So that's typically what I gravitate towards. Usually the offset or the side mount are my favorite too.
I like that. What else? Oh, so then also for mounting, got to talk about light bars. So the problem when I'm mounting a light, normally I want it to be in line with the end of the muzzle. The reason for that is if the light ended way back here, you'll end up having shadow for all the part of where the barrel's obstructing it. Just like that. So when you go to use suppressors, if you want to, that creates another issue. Because on this dude, once I get the suppressor on, it's going to be way farther past the forearm. And if I just use the mount that came with the light would end somewhere around the muzzle. So instead, the fix for that is T-Rex Arms makes these. They're called a light bar. They make them in M-LOK or Picatinny. But what this does is just attaches into the M-LOK and it pushes the light further forward. And they work with the Surefire Pro or the Scout Series lights. So by doing this, it also frees up some rail space because by this MP5, even this is the 8.9 inch, it's still taking up enough rail space just getting my hand on it. So it's nice because it pushes the light forward. And then this gun, like I'm probably very rarely going to ever shoot this without a suppressor on it. So this way, I'm good to go. The light's close to where the suppressor is. I can still get my full grip on it. And I don't end up with a suppressor shadow at all.
Yeah. I'm pretty similar, man. Like I want mine to be, basically either at the very end of the muzzle, kind of like what you would see on this one, or maybe just a little bit further back. I think suppressor shadow definitely is a thing, but I do think too it depends on like your setup. Like for that little short gun, that makes a ton of sense because it opens up real estate, like you said. The other thing that people typically worry about, and I know this from experience, is like, hey, can I mount the light close to the muzzle device without like, is the muzzle device going to hurt the light? If I put a suppressor on there and the can gets really hot, is that going to hurt the light? Not only will it not hurt the light, like the light won't give two shits about this, right? Whether it's a Mod Light or the Surefire, like neither of these companies' lights are going to be bothered by your suppressor or muzzle blast. Like this one here is mounted next to a freaking Q cherry bomb, which I mean it gets hammered. Like that's an FDE light and it looks black. This thing gets demolished, and it does not care about that. Same thing with this one. Like you could see, this one's actually taken quite the beating next to that 4-prong. It's totally fine. Like the heads are fully potted. I believe the Surefire heads are fully potted too, meaning they have epoxy. It's full of epoxy holding everything together. Like it's shock proof, it's heat proof. None of that stuff is going to matter. So I would say mount it where you want and not worry about it.
For mounting the light, I don't do anything cool or tactical, but I always want the light on the opposite side that my face is going to be on also. So since I'm left-handed, I want the light on the left side of the rail. So that way when I'm mounting the rifle, it's just one less thing kind of in my vision.
Mm-hmm.
You agree with that?
I go back and forth. Like this one is actually on my left side, so it's on the side of my hand. There's a couple things about it that are decent. Like if you have like the DS00 tail cap, or maybe you have like the gas cap, the Unity gas cap. Like I can use the Unity gas cap to fire the light and the pressure pad. I mean, it's like, to me, it's like six dozen, 6 one, a half dozen of the other, whatever the hell that saying is. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, put it where you want. For this one in particular, it was easier to stick it on this side as well because of this RAID X. So you can see how the RAID X hangs off the right side of the rail a little bit further than the left, which makes it harder to mount the light. Is it doable? Yeah, but it's just easier to put the light on the left side. So
makes sense. This MP5 could potentially go in a backpack from time to time. So I have the stock folds on the same side that the light's on also.
Smart.
Just to make it easier to fit in a backpack if that was something I decided I wanted to do.
Yep.
So there's no like always and never with this stuff. Just kind of throwing out my 2 cents for stuff I've changed along the way.
Yeah. I think what you're saying is like you have to go out and experience whatever it is that you want to do with the thing, and then you'll create your personal preferences and know how to set all your stuff up.
Very true.
There's no one way to do it with lights.
Let's talk about pressure switches also.
Mm-hmm.
So this one is, you probably know models better than I do. This is a Surefire. It's, I think, newer. This one just attaches. They make M-Lock in Picatinny, but this switch actually has M-Lock attachment to it. So it's super easy to do. And for this one, when I'm shooting it, my support hand's going to be right here. And so it's very easy just to move my thumb over if I want to hit the button. This one, I can just press it for momentary or click it for constant. But I'm just looking for something that I don't have to change my grip a bunch when I'm shooting the gun, because I wouldn't want to be normally shooting like this, like, oh, but I want to use the light, so I have to do something goofy like that. You want to be able to just more or less, if I'm shooting regularly or I'm activating the light, if you're watching me shoot, you should not see a big change in anything I'm doing.
Yeah, you don't want to have to do the reach round.
Well, you know about that better than I do. Otherwise, for carbines, I like SR09 maybe.
So they have the SR07, and the SR09 I think has a 9-inch cable. The SR07, which is what that one is, has the 7-inch cable.
Too many model numbers. This one is momentary just by pressing the pad, or you can press this slightly to get kind of a. Sometimes it'll like, I think, yeah, maybe not. So momentary here and then constant on's clicking this guy. But I just like the momentary. And for me, I use this as a reference for my index for where my support hand goes in the rail. So I like just using the back part of the switch as where my thumb rests. I can put pressure into it and I'm not activating the light. And if I'm going to activate the light, my thumb just goes forward a half an inch and I can get momentary if I want to. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's been really good. Just after you load the gun, it's slung, whatever, just picking it up. If my thumb is just resting on the back part of that switch, I know my support hand's in the place I want it to be.
Yep. So I've got a metric crap ton of pressure pads here. I won't bring them all out and go into like the heavy
every
stuff.
Single one. I want to know the MSRP, the actual street price, and the model number.
Yeah, because there's a ton that you can get. So I've got 3 right here that I'll show everyone. This is just a regular mod button. This one has the Surefire plug on it. So if you've got a UE or the DS00 tail cap, this is the mod button that you will want. Neat thing about the mod button is how tiny it is. It takes up very, very little real estate on the gun. So if you've got a shorter gun with a laser, and say you want 2 pressure switches, like 2 of these in a row is very, very tiny.
I like that.
It also bolts onto the rail, which I think is a good thing because this is not something that I would want to bump and have fall off. So bolting onto the rail, I think, is a very, very good idea. These also come in a couple different cable lengths. So this one is a 7-inch. Most people will need the 4.5, right? The 4.5, plenty long enough for pretty much the majority of guns out there. The 7 comes in handy for, like I've used this on AKs, some of the PDWs that maybe you're going to mount the button up here and this needs to go around, a rail and click into, like maybe the 7-inch would be the one for you. The easiest way to check this out. It's just like run a measuring tape on, where you would want your button and run it to the flashlight. See, the type of cable length you would need. It's also going to come in a couple different, I guess, plugs, you could call it. It'll come with the Surefire plug, or you can get the USB-C plug, which the USB-C plug would plug into your Unity gas cap. The Surefire plug would obviously plug into the Surefire tail caps. Now, getting into, actually, here are some Unity switches here. This one is the Unity Axon SL. Neat thing about the SL is it's kind of ramped, right? So the ramp is kind of cool. If you don't want to push straight down with your thumb to turn a light on, you want to push forward. The Axon SL comes in pretty handy. It would also be pretty handy if you use the SL in conjunction with a mod button in back of it. Maybe you have a mod button on a laser, so then you could have a ramp and a mod button there. So the SL is pretty cool. The other one that I like a lot, especially in conjunction with lasers, is the Unity Axon. So this one is going to have your ramp in the front. That one runs your light, and then the one in the back will run your laser. There's a bunch of different options with the Unity switches too. Like you can get your USB-C plug, you can get a crane plug if your laser has the need for a crane plug. You could get the NGAL plug. You can get a bunch of different options. You could also get these in the sync model. The sync model, you push one button and it'll have Viz override on it for your laser, meaning the light and the Viz laser will come on despite what setting you're on with your laser. So maybe you're on IR laser, you're shooting with nods on, and for whatever reason, maybe that you could dream up, you want your white light and your Viz laser, you push one button with the sync. Like all of the NGAL ones, I believe, are sync, if I'm not mistaken. So it's pretty cool. Like you could be on IR, push the one button, your flashlight and your Viz laser comes on. So you'd have Viz override on that, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty fancy.
It is. And all of those bolt on as well. So you have 2 screws. Pretty good. They're super durable. They hold up. I've never had one break while I'm using it or anything like that. So I would buy it with confidence. And those will work with your Surefire lights too. It doesn't have to be a mod light.
Very cool. I will say I've yet to break anything light related while shooting. So I fire like all my 5.56s, well, not all, but pretty much every 5.56 I train with has a light attached to it. And I've yet to have one break where it wouldn't come on or a tail cap failed or anything like that. I haven't personally broken anything yet. I'm sure it's happened. The same thing with the pistol lights. I haven't had a bulb go out or anything come loose or break or anything like that. So for me, no issues.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what fails, I guess.
My job is to break things. So I typically know what fails. On pistol lights, whether it's the mod light or whether it's the X300, well, I would say this, like the new mod light switches are very, very durable. I've never broken any of these. Like I've actually stuck them in a vise and like raked them back and forth and tried to break them and can't. I have broken the X300 switches, the paddles. And I think what happens, especially like on like Safariland holsters, like if they get caught on any of the stuff that's inside of the Safariland holster, I have had the paddles break off, especially if you do like something like, put the like bigger paddles on that you could buy. Like to me, the bigger paddles, this is something that would be good for people to hear. The bigger paddles that you could buy from whatever company, there's a ton of different companies that make bigger paddles for those things. I generally think it's a bad idea. And it's a bad idea because it just adds leverage to the switch itself. And it also can get bumped very, very easily. So like turning the light on isn't my concern. Like I don't want the light to turn on accidentally. I want to be very sure of like, yep, I have to push my thumb down and turn this light on if I want it to turn on. Like I don't want a switch that is so close to my hands that I have to be careful on my draw.
Yes.
Don't turn the light on. I think the bigger paddles are just a bad idea all around, in my opinion. So I would stay away from those. But we were talking about things that break. So I have broken those. Again, not on the new Mod Light pistol bodies. These switches are very, very durable. And then the Surefire UE tail caps. Those typically over time. I don't know why the UE and not the DS00. The DS00 seems to be more durable than the UE. I don't know. Maybe that's a me thing as well. But yeah, I have had those break. One was on a Scar heavy, so like maybe that doesn't count. But that's that thing where I was talking about, like the plug does line up in recoil.
Sure.
So over time, it can wear out.
I gotcha.
Nerd stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's about covers it. Oh, when the lights, like if you shoot a lot and the face of the light gets full of unburnt powder and whatever, what do you recommend for cleaning that?
This stuff is typically my go-to. It's called Paragon WLC.
Okay.
If it'll focus, it's not going to focus. Anyway, you guys can Google that, Paragon WLC. I think I actually still carry this on my website. I'm a dealer for them, but like no one, not to sound mean, but like no one ever buys it because I think maybe they don't know what it is. This stuff is freaking baller, man. Like you put a couple drops on the lens of your light, kind of swish it around, let it sit for a second, and wipe it. Dude, it'll be like the lens is brand freaking new. It's pretty bananas.
My lenses all just happen to look brand spanking new because that's the stuff you sent me when I asked what I should buy. And that's why I was asking the question. Well, like, man, I hear the stories about like people use pencil erasers and they have all kinds of weird or gun solvents, whatever. And obviously I don't want to damage it. So yeah, you sent me some of that stuff. It's the same deal. I just like put a little bit on the lens, move it around a little bit, wipe it off with a paper towel, and good to go.
Yep. I mean, if you're a Mod Light guy, all of these heads are user serviceable, because I would be remiss to not mention this. All the heads are user serviceable. If you're like, hey, I've cleaned this thing a gazillion times and like this one probably could use it. Like you could see all around the outside how it's all black. Like I can't get that off anymore. It's just chock full of carbon. All of these heads, you can switch out the lens. So like you can get on the website, you can buy a lens replacement kit. I think it's like $7.50 to your door, or not to your door because you'll pay shipping. But like for under $20, you can get a lens replacement kit. It'll come with a tool to undo the bezel ring. You could plop in a new lens, screw in the bezel ring. Maybe you're doing like force on force stuff with your lights or your guns, and maybe the lens gets shot. Well, for $7.50, you could just replace the freaking lens.
Cool.
So a lot of use there, in my opinion, with it being user serviceable.
Dude, I like it. That's all the questions I had. I think we did okay.
Yeah, dude, that was all the light stuff.
Hopefully that was all the stuff. Maybe more than people wanted to know, but man, like, oh, I should also just say I've owned a bunch of Streamlight stuff also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's price point, but I've never broken anything Streamlight, and for the dollar amount, like for what you pay, I think they are a great value. So I mean, I like Surefire stuff. Maybe that makes me a snob, but if your budget like dictates looking at the Streamlight stuff, that stuff's good to go. I like probably not getting it right. There's like an HLX something, like 1,000 lumen pistol light that's good to go. And there's a Rifle Light Pro Tac maybe that comes with a mount. The mount I don't like. It's kind of cheesy, but you could put that on an Arasaka mount, which I've done before, and that makes it's like $120 light maybe on Amazon. And you could use, like, it comes with a pressure switch, change out the mount. So if you're price sensitive, there are some options from Streamlight that I think are like okay.
I think so too. I mean, Streamlight makes good budget friendly lights.
Yeah.
They are from China. So if you're okay with that, then by all means you could have a cheaper light. A more inexpensive light, I should say.
100%. So like I said, I've owned them, fired a bunch of rounds with having them on guns, and no issues with anything Streamlight either. So that's another one I think you can buy with confidence if one of these brands are not what you're looking for, a bit outside your price range.
Cool, man.
All right.
I think
we did it.
We beat this dead horse.
I agree.
If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comment box below. And who knows? Maybe we'll read all the comments and do one of these and answer all the comments.
Yes.
All
Talk
right.
about exploding O lights.
All right, Joel.